Blade, and I'm the editor, creator, and producer of what you're watching right now, Blade Talk. If you are new here, welcome, and you found this presentation helpful, informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. So in today's presentation, I wanted to go over the three major festivals in Judaism and a little bit of why, if you live outside of the land of Israel, do you have to observe an extra day. For example, Passover is observed 7 days, but if you live outside the land of Israel, you have to observe it for 8 days. I'm going to go over a little bit of why that is. So if you're interested, let's hit that intro and let's begin. Alright, so again, in this presentation, I want to go over the Jewish festivals, okay? But before we do, I want to begin with a trivia question, alright? That question is, how many Jewish holidays are there in a year? Take a second to think about it. I'll give you some options down below. Pick a number anywhere from 3 to 60. How many Jewish holidays are there in a year? Don't Google it. Give me your best guess. You got it? All right. And the answer is a grand total of 12. There are 12 Jewish holidays in a year. Not all biblical. In fact, there are 5 biblical holidays, and this just means that it is listed in the Torah. It is a holiday that we have to keep as a people or a nation. These are commandments from God that the Jewish people must observe. And then there are 7 rabbinical days. Now, these 7 days are days that the rabbis thought that were significant after the Torah was given. Now notice that I didn't call them rabbinic holidays. This is because they aren't all celebrations. Actually, there are only 2 of the 7 that we mark as celebrations or great moments that we will mark every year. The other 5 days are fast days. Now, this may be surprising to many because many think we just fast on Yom Kippur. Nevertheless, these 5 days rabbis marked as days that we needed to do some introspection and correct a wrong that is still present in our national fabric. Getting back to today's topic, there are 5 Torah-based holidays. That doesn't mean that great events happened and we thought, wow, this must be marked with certain rituals and eat certain foods to bring us back to that moment. But rather, God is commanding us to observe these days. So we have to stop what we are doing and enter this time capsule, so to speak. The 5 holidays are typically divided into 2 groups, with the first group being the 3 festivals. The Torah actually commands us to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem as a nation where we can celebrate these festivals together around the Temple of Jerusalem, and we typically bring an offering to God as a nation. The goal of these festivals is to connect us to our roots. 3 different experiences that happened in 3 different environments that were pivotal to our national development. Let's dive deeper into them. The first environment where we actually became a nation is the land of Egypt. We were in Egypt for a grand total of 210 years, of which many of those years were spent in servitude. We were crushed as a nation working for our masters, the Egyptians. Then we have the fantastic experience of our liberation. God, over the course of a year, executes these 10 plagues on the Egyptians. Then Pharaoh finally lets us go, and then we have the splitting of the Red Sea, where we really essentially escape. So this is occurring in Egypt and just outside the land of Egypt, that we actually become a nation, and thus we celebrate Passover. The goal of Passover is to connect us to this experience coming from slavery to freedom. It is a national redemption by God and becoming His people. Now, God commands us in the Torah to celebrate Passover as a 7-day holiday. The first night is when we observe the Seder. The 7th day is when we mark the splitting of the Red Sea, because that event occurred 7 days after getting out of Egypt. Now, for those living outside the land of Israel, it is actually 8 days. I'll explain why, and this also applies to the other 2 festivals that we're going to go over. So in the Torah, we are commanded to keep 7 days of Pesach, to have no chametz for 7 days. Until around the 4th century CE, the calendar was not pre-calculated, but the new month was declared based on witnesses seeing the new moon and coming as witnesses to the Sanhedrin. This was then communicated to outlying communities using messengers, as well as a system of towers with fires being lit. This method was used to inform distant communities in the diaspora. Now, unfortunately, the Samaritans, who were at odds with the Jewish people, would work to undo this system, and what they would do is they would light the towers a day before or a day after it was expected, leading outlying communities unsure which was the correct day. So to make sure that they were keeping the correct day, they started keeping the extra day so they would not mistakenly miss the correct day. Thus, outside of Israel, we continue with the custom of keeping an extra day of each major holiday, even though now, of course, we use a pre-calculated calendar. This is because the rule was set up by an authoritative Sanhedrin, and until we have one of equal authority, the rule still stands, because there hasn't been an authoritative body equal to the Sanhedrin since the Sanhedrin was disbanded. So that's why we keep all major holidays, if you're living outside of the land of Israel, an extra day. The second major environment that shaped us as a nation was at Mount Sinai. Now, we were camped out at Mount Sinai for almost an entire year. The momentous occasion that occurred was, of course, the giving of the Torah, the national revelation that our ancestors received. God spoke to our ancestors, and for that moment, every Jew on that mountain became a prophet. This is marked by the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot literally means weeks. The word Shiva in Hebrew means 7. A week is 7 days. Shavuot literally occurs after a 7-week cycle of weeks. And on the 50th day it is marked as a holiday when the commandments were spoken. The Torah commanded Shavuot to be a 1-day holiday. Outside of Israel, it is a 2-day holiday. The third environment that shaped us as a nation was the desert itself. We were in the desert for a total of 40 years. Now, Sinai marks the first year in the desert, but we weren't supposed to be there for so long. We were actually supposed to go into the land of Israel sooner, but because spies went into the land and checked it out and came back and scared everyone, God punished the entire generation with the exception of a few. God then decrees that we are to live in the desert for a total of 40 years. We mark this with the holiday of Sukkot. It is during Sukkot that we build these sukkahs, which literally means a booth. These are what we lived in for the years we were in the desert. The primary idea of a sukkah is that the roof has to be split a little. You have to be able to see through to the sky and stars, because we didn't need physical protection as we were under God's spiritual canopy and shield. It was the clouds of glory that protected the Jewish people in the desert. The Torah tells us that there were 6 clouds, 4 on either side, 1 on top and 1 below, that acted as a spiritual incubator for the Jewish people as we were in the desert. There we developed this sense of being under God's protection, and there really is no permanent shelter in this world. We understood that at that time. It is all temporary in this physical world. All shelter is temporary in this world. The only true security comes from being under God's shelter. The Torah commands us to keep Sukkot as a 7-day holiday. There's an 8th day that the Torah commands us to observe called Shemini Atzeret. This is kind of seen as its own holiday, but it's connected to Sukkot. And of course, outside the land of Israel, it will be a 9-day holiday. These 3 festivals are meant to strengthen us by getting us back in touch with these 3 experiences that shaped us as a nation. Even though we aren't experiencing our freedom from Egypt on Passover, the freedom and what that meant existentially still exists during the holiday, and that is the light that we tap into through the observance of the commandments. Eating the matzah, the bitter herbs, telling the story of what occurred to us, to our children. And then there is Shavuot, which is the giving of the Torah. Every year, we have a new acceptance and an idea to deepen our understanding of what's in the Torah. The Torah is our way of connecting to God and giving us our national purpose. And then finally, there's the festival of Sukkot. We recreate our desert experience and live as we lived in the desert. That is where we get in touch with the spiritual theme of happiness. Now, even though all the festivals are happy and are joyous times, Sukkot gives us a new meaning of what it means to be happy because we are under God's protection. That is truly the best place to be, and we need it now more than ever in today's climate with the rise of anti-Semitism. Throughout the course of history, we have always been hated. Arabs hate Jews because we are occupiers. Germans hated Jews because we were the scapegoats. Hebrew Israelites hate Jews because we stole their struggle and their identity. Christians hated Jews because we supposedly killed their God. Stalin murdered Jews because they were capitalists. Europeans in the Middle Ages killed Jews because of their financial success. Jews have been hated because they were rich. Jews have been hated because they were poor, because they were capitalists, because they were communists, because they kept to themselves, and because they penetrated everywhere. You see, anti-Semitism is not a belief, it's a virus. You take the human body, it has a sophisticated immune system that develops defenses against viruses. It is penetrated, however, because viruses mutate. Anti-Semitism mutates. I'll end this presentation with a story of a Jewish salesman that traveled all over. He made a deliberate point that no matter where he was in the world, he would make a conscious decision to attend a minyan or a local synagogue to pray. One day, he was in the backwaters of the UK, and there wasn't a synagogue for 100 square miles. So he did the next best thing, and he entered his local church. He sat at the back. He put his tallis and tefillin on, and he started to pray. It was a Sunday. People are coming in for prayer and mass. After a while, people are looking at him uncomfortably. At which point, the priest very delicately says, "Will all non-Christians please make your way to the exit as services are about to commence?" The Jewish man pulls his tallis tight over his head, and he is completely oblivious to what's going on. The priest then says more sternly, "All non-Christians, please make your way out now." The Jewish man is rocking and praying, again, completely oblivious to what's going on. At this point, the priest bellows, "All Jews, leave now." Suddenly, the Jewish man stops, takes off his tallis and tefillin, rolls them up, and packs them under one arm, walks to the front of the church, grabs the statue of Jesus, and says, "Come on, Aki, we're not welcome here." So, I hope that I have explained 3 major Jewish festivals, and hopefully you got a new understanding of each one. So, if you found this presentation helpful and informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. Be good to yourselves. Be good to others. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Blade Talk. And until next Sunday, you all take care and Shavua Tov.